Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition to the Morning Podcast. Was doing well on this Wednesday. I am your host, Noah Warren, as always. Pardon my voice today. It does sound a little still battling head cold, so don't sound the greatest right now, but we're going to battle through it today with a lot to get into. Last night, you saw the Mavericks win, which I did have on the pick of the day, but of course, the Calgary Flames blew it for us, so that's an L last night. Could be doing pick of the day later in the show, kind of battling between a couple. So a little futures bet that I like, but we're going to get into some NHL as we usually do on the show, NBA. Also want to touch on the French Open. That's ongoing in Paris. A lot of big upsets, a lot of big matches happened today. A lot of guys, big names that went out and also survived elimination. So as we get into major season here, we got Roland Garros and we have Wimbledon in next month at the end of June. This is really the best part of the tennis schedule. When you get into the summer, you get some really great tennis. You get some golf season going with the two last majors of the season. So lots happening on those fronts as well. We'll tee up because tonight we got Colorado, St. Louis, Game 5 in Colorado. Colorado with the opportunity to close out that series. We also got Boston, Miami in the NBA, where it's a 2-2 series, a pivotal game in South Beach tonight. And we'll see who comes out on top, and we'll talk about it all throughout the show. But today's title of the podcast is Acquisitions. And I'm watching hockey last night, and, there's superstars in every team. There's Mika Zibanejad, there's Artemi Panarin, not really. But there's the names that you hear of normally. But then you look at who's playing so well, who's getting the goals, who's making a huge impact. And you start to think about it again and again. You're like, wow, these trade deadline acquisitions for these teams have been pivotal in the teams getting this far. Josh Manson scores the overtime game winner in Game 1. Frank Vetrano coming over from Florida has been a great acquisition for New York. Carolina wouldn't be here without Max Domi's great play in Game 7. You can go through it. But then you go to New York and you go to Edmonton last night, and that's where it really crystallized for me. Andrew Copp was the player that I love the way he plays. He was the player that I would want the most. I remember saying that in the podcast right before the trade deadline. He's a guy that can be your third-line center. He can move up in the lineup. He can play physical. He can play defensive. However you want Andrew Copp to play, he can do it. He can fit in with anybody. He's a Swiss Army knife that delivers whenever you need him to. And not only that, but, he was having a quiet series, playing a top unit, plays great defensively. But last night it was Andrew Copp's night. He finished the night with 3 points, 2 assists on the first 2 goals, in which the first 2 goals of the game, he steals the puck in the opponent's zone and then finds a beautiful cross-seam pass that led to the first goal of the game. And then he finds Lindgren at the point. Lindgren shoots the puck, and it goes into the back of the net. But Andrew Copp was so pivotal last night. And the Rangers have tied the series at 2. They have life. They feel like they can win this series again. I picked them from the beginning, so I'm going to ride with that. But I mentioned this from the beginning, and I'm going to stick to it because I don't think he played well again last night. Artemi Panarin has been really a non-factor. He's been a guy that is praised a lot. He's marveled for his stick handling. He's marveled for his ability to make people miss. But what has he done in this series to really make you so pleased with his play? Not much for me. But then you have a guy like Andrew Copp, who scores 3 points last night. Frank Vetrano, another trade deadline acquisition, who has 2 goals. Adam Fox. The big shift is Artemi Panarin was the superstar blockbuster signing. He was the guy brought in free agent time. It was New York signaling, we're going to go for it again. We got him from Columbus. We now have a superstar talent on our roster. And don't get me wrong, Artemi Panarin's a very good player. they're going to need Artemi Panarin to be great in order to beat Carolina, because Carolina is unbeaten at home, which they have 2 of the next 3 games at home, and they are winless on the road, the most dramatic of splits remaining in the postseason. So Andrew Copp has his night. He's not a guy that's going to produce night in, night out. He's not Austin Matthews. He's not Connor McDavid, but he's still a very effective player. For Toronto, same thing. He doesn't always create his own offense, but he shows up when you need him to. They had a big home game last night. He played extremely well. New York's going to need Chris Kreider to be better. They're going to need all these guys. But he won a major award last year, this player. But to me, it's the playoffs where you truly cement yourself. You can win a major award, but if you don't do anything in the postseason to back it up, it falls very flat. I mentioned that about Connor McDavid's in the past. Austin Matthews this year. Sure, he might win the Hart Trophy. Yes, he won the Rocket Richard. That's great to go on the mantle. But does it fall in deaf ears at the NHL awards? Are people going to care outside of Toronto? Does that really boost his? I'm sure TSN and Sportsnet will have his player rating in the top 2 or 3 going into next season. I won't, but they might. But the shift for New York was, okay, we have a superstar in Artemi Panarin. You have a good player in Artemi Panarin. It's not a superstar. That word's thrown around too much. But what you do have in New York is you have a superstar in Adam Fox. Adam Fox is just deadly. When it comes to putting up points, he might be the best defenseman in the NHL at it. He leads the Rangers in points this postseason. He's always around the puck. I do think he plays a hell of a lot better when Ryan Lindgren's on the ice with him. But there's no denying, excuse me, how great Adam Fox has been. He's a player with tons of skill. He has this innate ability to get shots through from the point. He's not afraid to pinch in situations. And I think that's comfortability with Lindgren when he doesn't get burned on it. It doesn't look like a terrible play. But he has been everything they've asked for. He took the route of, I don't want to play for Calgary. Gets traded to Carolina. Keeps going to school. I don't want to play for Carolina. I don't want to play for Carolina. Trade me. He ends up in New York. Normally, players are criticized for this type of model where, no, you're drafted where you drafted. You play there. You don't bitch and complain. He did it. It's an American type attitude. Yes, Lindros did it. This is very much, hey, I'm going to dictate my own terms. I haven't played a game yet, but I know I'm good enough to do it. And to his credit, he's backed it up with a Norris Trophy and being the best player on his team and giving New York a superstar. They've had one in net. They had one in net for a long time in Ken Henrik Lundqvist. But it's very difficult if your one superstar is a goaltender because most times you will get deep into the playoffs. You might get to a Stanley Cup final, which the Rangers did in 2014, but you fall short. Montreal Canadiens did this last season. Their superstar was a goaltender. Ultimately, they didn't have enough firepower to get you over the hump. Igor Shesterkin has continued to play better as these playoffs have gone on. The Rangers could win the Stanley Cup. Don't get that twisted. They could this season. If they don't this year, the team's just getting better and better. But when you have a superstar talent like him and you supplement it with great players like a Kreider, like a Panarin, like Mika Zibanejad, who is frustrating because there are games where you look at him and you're like, this guy's such a superstar, and then he'll miss a wide open cage 3 times in the night, and it leaves you frustrating looking at him saying, what the hell just happened? But you look at Adam Fox. He is tied for 5th in playoff scoring with 13 points. I was wrong. Zibanejad has 1 more point than him, but you get, Zibanejad is 1st. Adam Fox is 2nd. He's a defenseman. Looking at the top 12 players, excuse me, Cale Makar is the only other defenseman on this list. Go figure. Andrew Copp has 10 points. He's right there. He's having a spectacular postseason for the Rangers. Artemi Panarin has less playoff points than Andrew Copp. So this isn't just hate coming from me. This is just the facts that he's not as valuable. He doesn't go to the middle of the ice. He stays in the perimeter, and he's not an effective player. In the postseason, thus far, he's been extremely limited. He got the playoff OT winner, which he deserves credit for. But other than that, what games has he played extremely well? Stick handling the puck, making fancy moves where nothing happens doesn't mean that you're playing effectively. And I think that's something that really gets in our game now that gets overblown. Oh, this guy can do so many things with the puck. It's like a great ball handler in the NBA. You can dribble, you can do all the things, put it between your legs. If you shoot a logo three and you don't even hit back iron, what was it all worth? Not a whole lot. You were just there for the sake of being there. So the series tied 2-2. Copp's been great. Fox, Zibanejad scores key goals when he has to. But these next couple games are about Artemi Panarin. What do you have? Other guys have played well, but it's time for you to step up. It's time for you to take the reins. It's time for you to be the difference maker. New York is in a position where in order to advance, they're going to have to do something that the Bruins could not do, and it's something that the Hurricanes have not allowed an opponent to do this postseason, and that's lose at home. It's a best 2 out of 3. They have one home game remaining. They need to win one of the next 2 games. They need to win their home game. I'm going to say they're going to win that one because Carolina's winless on the road, and they haven't really come that close to winning a game on the road. You need to win one in Carolina. And Carolina, I mentioned the other day, they're a frustrating team to play against because they're like the Islanders. They're not going to give you much. I think, excuse me for the coughing. Hope to have this cleared up by tomorrow. It's just, don't feel that bad, but it's annoying. I know it must be for all of you. But Carolina plays a structured system. They're boring. They're very sound. What hurt them last night was stupid penalties. We'll get to the true hit in a minute. But stupid penalties and their power play stinks. It's 0 for 10 in the series. It's the second worst power play in the playoffs when it comes to percentage behind the Florida Panthers when it comes to attempts. And Antti Raanta, who's a backup goalie, has been really playing very well, in my opinion. I think he probably should have saved the Copp goal last night, but the game was out of hand at that point. Zibanejad's goal, maybe could have closed that one off. But again, he hasn't been the issue. Made a huge save on Lafreniere in the first period to keep it 0-0. He made some big saves last night. Shesterkin made some big ones as well, robbing Brett Pesce in the first 3 minutes of the game. But again, your team is going to have to be better because I said this about the Toronto series. Jack Campbell is never going to be as good as Andrei Vasilevskiy because Vasilevskiy is the best goalie in the world. Well, Shesterkin is likely going to win the Norris Trophy, win the Vezina as best goaltender in the regular season of the NHL. Well, he's been pretty good since Game 5 against Pittsburgh. He's been pretty dialed in. He's played well. He's consistent, and he doesn't give up bad goals a whole lot. So Carolina so far this postseason, their top 2 points getters are Jacob Slavin, a defenseman, and Tony DeAngelo, a defenseman. Oddly enough, they play together on the same defense pairing. But these guys are going to have to continue to be good. I think DeAngelo's trying to jump in. He's getting good opportunities. Slavin is even taking more opportunities than he normally would because they need to. Sebastian Aho finally got a point on the road last night. He's got 1 in the playoffs in 5 games. Svechnikov has been a no-show this whole postseason, in my opinion. He's another guy where he's a big dude, he's physical, but get to the front of the net, be a difference maker, create havoc. That power play should not be as bad as it is. A guy who I thought had a really good first round but's kind of died down. He is a role player, if you will, but Vincent Trocheck needs to be better. And a guy that I want to spotlight, and if Carolina finds a way to win this series, I think this guy's going to have a big goal. He's going to have a big game, something, because he's due. And that's Martin Necas. Marty Necas didn't have a great season. He's known for being an offensive player. He's from the Czech Republic. He's got a great shot. I think right now his confidence is a little shaken, where he doesn't look as dialed in. His shot attempts are down. He's missing the net. He's hitting the side of the net. It's just not going that great for Marty Necas. But he's being put on lines where he can succeed, where he can have some success. And if I'm Rob Brendamore, I continue to put him up there because I think he'll deliver. He only has 3 assists in the playoffs, but keep going to him, because Teravainen's been really good. Keep paying him with Aho, the two Finnish guys playing well together. But Marty Necas is a guy that can deliver. He's been close. He's all around it. But he's a guy that could break out and have one of those games where you go, okay, we won this game because of Marty Necas. She stepped up. But it's so hard to figure out. I mean, you look at what's happened so far. It screams that the Carolina Hurricanes will win this series because they won both games at home to start the series, and they won 4 in round 1, 6-0. They might lose another road game, which they've lost every one to this point, but they have 2 out of the next 3 on home ice. But there's just something about this Rangers team. They should have been dead against the Pittsburgh Penguins. They should have been out against the Pens, but they found a way to battle back. You could say it's Crosby's injury. It doesn't matter. In the playoffs, you don't need an excuse. If you win the series, nobody gives a shit how you did it. You know, Toronto outplayed Tampa. Boston played better than Carolina in Game 7. It doesn't matter as long as you advance. It doesn't. It's irrelevant. You move on. But for the Rangers, I think they have this feel about them that they're taking a big step. And this could be a Rangers season where they play Tampa and they come up short. But they could be the Golden State Warriors, where I remember the year before the Golden State Warriors won their first championship, they lost in the second round. And it was a feel of, this team is coming. This team is a team of destiny. This team's going to do something in the league. And like I said, the very next season, they were NBA champions. The Rangers are right there because Lafreniere has taken a step in these playoffs. He's playing extremely well. Kreider is still a great player. Like I mentioned, Zibanejad, you have an anchor on the back end with Fox, and it's a good anchor, keeping you afloat. Ryan Lindgren, I like a lot. Keandre Miller is only going to get better. Braden Schneider is a young defenseman. And I mentioned this at the trade deadline. I'd be trying to make this move. You got to make salary work, but Patrick Kane's a free agent in 1 season. Can you make that deal for Patrick Kane? Can you get him to New York? It might take a move like that, a winner, to really come in and solidify it. I don't know if Chicago would do it. I don't know if Kane wants to move from Chicago. But to go to New York and a chance to win, that's got to be something. But I think for Carolina, they need to continue. They need to find more offense. I don't see their power play getting much better. This is kind of, you're at this point in the playoffs. The Rangers are doing what they're doing on the penalty kill. You know, Tyler Mott, another deadline acquisition, that's his strength. He's really good. He attacks people. Kevin Rooney's been fantastic at that as well. He's a 4th-line center, but him and Reeves and Kakko had a really good game last night. They outplayed the Stahl line, in my opinion, who have been kind of being the 4th-line center role on the opposition. So for Carol, keep it simple and get a lead. You know, New York had a lead in Game 1. They threw it away. But since then, the team that's got the first goal has won every game. And for New York, if you can get a lead and not fall asleep like they did in Game 1, you're in a good position because then you can hold it. You're relying on a good goalie. But unless you're the Tampa Bay Lightning, because I've seen them do it, you should never just go into prevent defense where you don't go on the opposition, you don't try to score any more goals, you just hold back and pray that you win the game. New York has aggressive people. That's not the way they're supposed to play. Their defense isn't built that way. They don't play great fundamentally. Their structure isn't that great. You have Keandre Miller, Braden Schneider, who can get lost when it comes to coverage, when it comes to assignments. So that should be the focus. Should be, okay, let's play smart, but if we can get a 2-0 lead here, let's do it. Tampa's got to be smiling because they know there's 2 more games in this series. It's a chess match to see if New York can get a win in Carolina. Word of advice, do it in Game 5. Because I think that building will be rocking in Game 7. They did it the last round. Maybe they can find a way to squeak one out. But that's my advice to the New York Rangers. Find a way to win Game 5. Shesterkin's got to be great, but he has been all series long. Keep going, and like I said, Artemi Panarin has to be the man. He hasn't been the man yet in these playoffs. He's been a guy, just a guy. I mean, look at these point getters in the playoffs. McDavid obviously is at the top. You have Evander Kane above him. You have Perron above Panarin. Fox, O'Reilly, Verhaeghe, Marchand. Marchand's played 4 less games. Gensel, Copp, Landeskog, Kadri, Nugent Hopkins, Kachuk, Teravainen, Hedman, Crosby, Rantanen, Zach Hyman, Elias Lindholm, Aho, Buchnevich. Kirill Kaprizov has the same number of points. He's been out for a very long time. You were brought in to be the man, to break out, have a great playoff, be a key contributor to go far. He hasn't done it yet. He owes it to New York to have a great game, have it on the road, and then bank on you winning, a huge game 6 on home ice. Put yourself in the best position to do it. But I look at Panarin, this is on you to deliver. Another deadline acquisition. And this was a little before the trade deadline, but it was right around that time. It was the Evander Kane saga in San Jose where he was sent down to the minors, and then they bought him out, and he was bankrupt, and his wife was accusing him of stuff, and it was just a bad time to be Evander Kane. It was a bad time for teams to really want to sign him because there was nothing positive about Evander Kane. Now, at the time, the Edmonton Oilers were all in. They took the media backlash. They took I don't know about this. This guy hasn't been good anywhere. He's a bad teammate. They took all the negative publicity. Connor McDavid had to answer questions where he got a little testy with the media. And it was at this time where the Edmonton Oilers were struggling. They were in a black pit. Dave Tippett was soon fired. And even soon after Jay Woodcroft got hired, the team wasn't really playing great yet. But through that period, they started to get better goaltending from Koskinen and then Mike Smith after he returned from injury. Connor McDavid started to mesh with Evander Kane. Leon Draisaitl started to go on a tear. Zach Hyman was back healthy after a tough start to the season. And the team just found it. They still had flaws in net on the back end, but they found a way to mesh. And from then on, the Edmonton Oilers really went on a great run down the stretch. They survived the LA Kings, where Connor McDavid went legend in Game 6 and 7. But throughout that first-round series, it was Evander Kane who was always there, the Robin to McDavid's Batman. When Draisaitl was injured, Kane had to step up in big moments, and he's done that. The only player this postseason to have 2 hat tricks. So, a deadline acquisition that was full of risk, a guy that's had a very questionable career, a guy that if you didn't know his history, you'd want to sign in half a second because you love the way he plays the game. Great hands, physical, will drop the gloves on anybody, the prototypical power forward. But it was a risk, and Edmonton got him on the cheap. They brought him in, and from very little, from then on, Connor McDavid found his great line mate that he was always looking for. It was always mix and match. It was guys that didn't work. And from that point on, Edmonton had lines that made sense. They had players playing with McDavid and Draisaitl that could produce. They weren't just stopgaps. They weren't Zach Kassian, who was playing with Connor McDavid for a long period of time, if you recall. Edmonton Oilers had some depth. They were a good team. They had speed, and they had the best player in the world. But of course, you look and you're like, okay, well, Mike Smith, the 40-year-old's in net. You have Cody Ceci, you have Duncan Keith on the back end. That's not exactly stellar. But you look at this playoff, and two key moves have been paramount. Evander Kane, as I just mentioned, and last offseason, Zach Hyman. Zach Hyman did not have as good of a regular season as Michael Bunting. And Michael Bunting is up for the Calder. If he wins it, I'll riot. But he's a 26-year-old rookie. He had a great season, yada, yada, yada. And the thought in Toronto was, well, it was a good value buy. We got Bunting. He had a great season. And that's still true. I still hate the Zach Hyman contract. I think it's way too long. But we're looking at the micro view of it right now. And the general thought, the theme of it, is, well, Zach Hyman wasn't as good in the regular season, but boy, has he been good in these playoffs. Has 9 points, has 5 goals in 4 games in this series alone, and has been the perfect tic-tac-toe partner with Draisaitl, has been working along the boards, and has been making spectacular plays. He gets out of the cesspool of losing that is the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he begins to have some success. He was ridiculed for going from the losing organization to the losing organization, which was fair at the time, although Edmonton's had more success in the playoffs in recent memory than the Leafs, although that's not a hard bar to come by. But Zach Hyman has proved that he is worth the price of admission so far. Evander Kane has proved that he's been worth the price and the PR hit, if you will, so far. And I even look at a guy like Warren Foegele. Warren Foegele, who was traded in the offseason for Ethan Bear, has been phenomenal in this series. The line of Ryan McLeod, Warren Foegele, and Kyler Yamamoto last night were extremely effective. They play against the top pairing in Calgary a lot. They make life difficult. They separate guys from pucks. They have a ton of energy. And there's a really hard line to play against because you have a mix of skill, you have a mix of grit and Foegele and McLeod, who is another burner, who I think McDavid might be giving lessons on how to skate. So that's been phenomenal. But through all of that, the Flames haven't been good. They're chasing the game. But I mentioned how, there's games where you don't have your best. The other team is playing better. Florida in Game 4 was far superior to Tampa Bay, but Andrei Vasilevsky bailed them up. Last night, Jacob Markstrom was god-awful. God-awful. The first goal of the game, 100% his fault. Misplaced the puck, Nugent Hopkins in the back of the net. The third goal on Evander Kane might have been worse. It was an ugly, ugly night for Jacob Markstrom. Yes, there's nights where you're doing mulligan, but it can't be last night. Where you're down 2-1 in the series, you're on the road, you can't go down 3-1. And I look at it squarely on his back because Calgary fought back in the game. They tied it. It was 3-1 after 1. They made it 3-3 at one point, following Rasmus Anderson's goal from his own end on Mike Smith. Last night would have been the Mike Smith crucifixion in Edmonton, if not for Jacob Markstrom being the lowercase goat and being the hero in Edmonton because of how porous he was. But sometimes you got to give props to certain guys. I mentioned Kane. I mentioned these guys. Another guy is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He was fantastic last night. McDavid didn't have his best game because they didn't let him do anything. They just said, we're going to bottle you up. We're going to put 2 guys on you. And it was really the whole night like he was double teamed. Anytime he got the puck, there were sticks everywhere. He still had a point or 2 in the game. but he was limited in what he could do. He couldn't get much traction, and they made that a point of emphasis. But Nugent Hopkins had more room, had more opportunities, and he made them pay. He's been in Edmonton a long time. He signed a long-term contract to stay. And it's so funny. Contracts and these long-term deals are looked and you're shaking your head. But if you win, if you find success, then it doesn't matter. I mentioned before, I thought that if the Edmonton Oilers lost in the first round, Ken Holland would be fired. That team is now up 3-1 in the second round, a win away from a conference final berth, which would be incredible for that team. It changes such a narrative. It changes the vibe. It goes from you lose in the first round LA to Connor McDavid saying, I want out of here potentially. I wasn't going to rule that out. This year was a bad year for him. All the negativity, everything that happens. And maybe he says, I've had enough of Edmonton. I'm not winning jack shit here. To now, even if they lose to, say, Colorado in their conference final, you were a series away from the Cup final. You continue to build on this, maybe get back next year. That can be fool's gold because we've seen a lot of teams get to a conference final, never get back. Carolina got to a conference final in 2009. It took them 6 years to get to another one. I could think of teams that get very, very close. New Jersey in 2012 gets to a Stanley Cup final. They missed the playoffs the next 3 seasons. So it can happen where you get to the playoffs, you get very close to winning, but ultimately it might have been a little bit of it was a fugazi, if you will. It was fake. It was counterfeit. Ottawa in 2017 was a double overtime goal away from going to the Stanley Cup final. They haven't made the playoffs since. So sometimes these runs are just a run, but you get a run and you can make it work. Both can happen. Where, like I said, the Golden State Warriors made the second round Game 7. They ultimately lost, but they grew. They had experience through that. They got back and won a Stanley Cup. The Edmonton Oilers could be that team. New York Rangers, I think, are very on the east side, are that team because I like the way they're built. I like them more than the Edmonton Oilers going forward. But for Calgary, it was the first period, Markstrom's fault, but after that, you find a way back. Lindholm scores, Anderson scores a shorty that, again, from his own end. So that it was a crazy goal that it went in. But you did a good job, McDavid, but the other team still beat you. And I thought last night was a must-win in Edmonton. Now you got a Game 5 tomorrow at home. The Oilers are going to win this series. Calgary, and this is how I look at it. Calgary survived Dallas. It was a great story. I mentioned it was Gaudreau's career-defining moment, that overtime winner. But the season went from, okay, we just dodged our bullet. We just got away from it. It's like Florida. Florida dodged their bullet. They got by Washington. I should have thought more about it. Did they play that well in that series? No, they didn't, and I knew that. I didn't think Calgary played that bad against Dallas. I just thought Jake Ottinger was phenomenal every game. But you got by that, and you still might run into a brick wall. Calgary could come back. Edmonton's not insurmountable of a team, but the way McDavid's playing right now and the confidence they have, and I think the lack thereof of the confidence on the Calgary Flames makes it extremely difficult. But all that positivity, the best 5-on-5 line in hockey this season was Gaudreau, Tkachuk, and Lindholm. They had the most goals 5-on-5. In this series, when it comes to 5-on-5 scoring goals, they are -6. I'm not talking this less about plus minus. This is just scoring goals compared to when, and I hate plus minus as a stat, but they have scored one 5-on-5 goal in this series. They've been scored on 5-on-5 6 times. Or 7 times, I guess. It was -6. I read it this morning. So it's been a struggle for them. They're not getting a whole lot from elsewhere. Dubé, these other cats haven't exactly chipped in as well. But I mean, Markstrom's got to be better, point blank. He's your better goalie. You got a chance moving forward. But if he plays like he did last night, you have no chance. I mean, just think of this. Mike Smith lets in a goal from the Calgary end of the ice, and they still win the game. He was that bad that he lets in a goal from there, but he can laugh about it after the game because they won. That's called letting a team off the hook. Having that big of a mistake, you should not let a team get away with that ever. And Calgary did last night. They let that team off the hook. For the Flames, that top line's got to be good. You have your home ice. But like Florida, if Calgary loses, Daryl Sutter's not going to be fired, but Tkachuk is a restricted free agent. Johnny Gaudreau is an unrestricted free agent. Is one playoff series enough to make people happy in Calgary? I don't think so, especially when the team you go out to is the Edmonton Oilers, your in-state rival. You can't have it. You can't have a loss to the Edmonton Oilers. You might be able to accept a loss to certain teams. To say, you know what, we'll take this. Yes, it was a tough battle, but you lose to the Edmonton Oilers, an inferior team by most people. Yes, most people, including myself. I think Calgary's a better team. And you still find a way to lose to them. I mean, the Edmonton Oilers, their best players have been unreal. The top 3 point getters in the postseason to this point are McDavid, Draisaitl, and Evander Kane. They are putting up points. Evander Kane had another 2 goals last night. He leads the playoffs in goals. He's got 3 more than the next closest player, which is Dave Perron. But oddly enough, Hyman and Draisaitl are both 4th with 7. These guys are just producing. McDavid's got 6, but McDavid has 25 points in the postseason in 11 games. The guy is a superhuman type player. They might get Colorado. They won't be favored. They weren't favored against Calgary, and they found a way to win. With him, you have a chance. It goes McDavid 25 points, Draisaitl 22, and you have Evander Kane and Kucherov with 15. Kane, 12 of those 15 being goals, which is just the 12-3 shift is funny in and of itself. But good for Evander Kane. He's been through a lot. He's getting chirped on the ice for going bankrupt, which I find funny from Matthew Tkachuk. But he's getting the last laugh because guess what? He's winning. His contract next year is going to be big because of this postseason run. And maybe he can buy Tkachuk dinner because he'll be able to afford it. But I will say for Edmonton, you're going on the road. Obviously, that's not a great position to close out a series. It's tougher to win on the road, obviously. Don't let it linger. Don't let it linger because this team does not have the reputation of closing. They haven't been in these big situations. Close out the series when you have a chance. They have all the they have all the momentum, but I'm interested to see what Calgary can bring tomorrow night. What kind of fight do they have? Because in the back of my mind, if I'm Calgary, we can still win this series. As good as McDavid has been, as good as Kane is scoring goals, Nugent Hopkins, whatever, we can still win this series because we're the better team. We can beat this team 3 games in a row. Markstrom, make a save for us. That would be nice. And we can make it happen. But will it happen? That remains to be seen. But if I'm Calgary, I still remain optimistic. I still remain confident because I know we are the better team. We can do this. But we'll see. We'll talk about this more tomorrow with what happens with the Calgary Flames. Tonight we have Colorado, St. Louis. Only 1 game tonight because of the Tampa sweep. It doesn't look good for St. Louis tonight. I'd like St. Louis to go to the Cup final. They don't have their goaltender. They're beat up. Colorado's just rolling through. And Colorado's at home. They won both games in St. Louis. I just think Colorado wants to get this done. They know Edmonton might be done tomorrow too. So both teams out west might get some rest just by osmosis because the Rangers-Carolina series goes 6 or 7. So they'll be able to sit and wait. They know who they're playing. And Edmonton knows they'll be going to Denver, Colorado for game 1. It'll just be when. When does this next series end? When does our series start? Type of deal. But for St. Louis, I mentioned yesterday the key players. Robert Thomas, Tarasenko. Can you bring anything to the table? Parayko's been playing a ton of minutes on the back end. Falk had a good first series. If he can bring something offensively, and the stupid penalties for St. Louis is a big reason why game 4 got out of hand. The Kadri incident is over. You addressed it. You addressed it the stupid way. It really cost you the game. When Kadri scored to make it 4-1, that was curtains on the game. You might as well just packed it up then. But don't take stupid penalties and just play the game. Yes, Colorado is going to have most of the puck control of the game. I just think that's the way it's going to work. But we've seen O'Reilly, seen Perron get opportunities and capitalize on it. St. Louis is still a very good team. They need Ville Husso to at least play adequately because I think he let in some stinkers in game 4. I don't think he has a whole lot of confidence. But you got O'Reilly, you got Perron, who have been fantastic in these playoffs. Saad's been decent as well. But those other guys, your other top forwards, Thomas is a youngster, but again, he still has more to bring. Tarasenko's been really quiet. Falk, these guys need to do something. If you're going to stay off elimination, which I don't think they will tonight, you need to find a way. Those guys need to find a way to have an impact on the game. Because St. Louis's window isn't huge either. Bennington's a free agent after this season, I believe. I'm going to look that up, but I'm like 95% sure I'm like 95% sure that Jordan Binnington's a free agent after this season. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. But I'm going to look that up quickly. Avs are the only team that can take down Tampa. Yeah, it looks that way to me as well. I think the Rangers Tampa will be an interesting series. I kind of just said earlier in the show that the Rangers are, they're the up-and-coming team. I think this could be a good deep run for them if they can get by the Canes and you get experience and you kind of build off it. And it could be like a Golden State Warriors moment where in their run before they won, they lost in the second round and then they ended up winning the title the next season. I think the Rangers have a really good roster. They got all the things that are needed, but I think Tampa, the way they're playing, they're going to be tough to beat. But also, I agree, the Avalanche are playing a different style of hockey than they have in years past. They're just dominating possession. They're eliminating ice, and they have different kind of players to play in different situations. So, no, I was completely wrong about this. Binnington signed a 6-year deal. 6 times 6 with the Blues on March 11th, 2021. So, yeah, I was wrong about that. But he'll be a free agent. He'll be obviously under contract, but the Blues will be an interesting situation which I think they'll lose tonight. What do they do with him? Because they got Husso there. He's played fantastic in this postseason. Do you run it back with both guys? You could, because Husso is not making a whole lot of money right now. So you could afford to do that, but I'm sure the way Binnington played in the playoffs, St. Louis is going to get some offers as well with teams around the league looking and saying, we don't have a great goaltending situation. We see the goaltending carousel every offseason. I can think of a couple of teams come to mind that I think would at least kick tires on Jordan Binnington. Here's a few. Ottawa Senators. They have Matt Murray's contract. If they can get rid of it, Binnington is a better solution. He's a good goaltender. He's won a Stanley Cup. Murray had also won a Stanley Cup. But again, Binnington is showing it right now. Matt Murray, you can't even get him on the ice in the American League. So that's a problem. This team's going to have to do some cap gymnastics, but I do think there's going to be a splash with this team at some point. They're going to have to do something to change it up. Toronto Maple Leafs, Jack Campbell is a good goalie. Binnington's better. I'd rather have Jordan Binnington than Jack Campbell. Binnington has proven he can do it. He's proven he can be a number one. He had a bad season this year, but guys can bounce back from that and play well. If I'm St. Louis, I'm not dealing him unless I get a really good trade in return. But if William Nylander was on the move and say you trade him for Jordan Binnington, I'd be intrigued by it because you have Husso behind him, who was great this season. And I do think that the St. Louis Blues are lacking another offensive firepower type player. I like their defense score. They can still make moves there. And I'm sure I'm missing teams when it comes to Binnington. I don't know if they'll want to trade him out west. So you'd have to do it in the Eastern Conference. Maybe the New York Islanders, because I think they're a team that missed the playoffs this year, but feel like they can be competitive right away after back-to-back conference finals. It's a big number with a lot of years left on it, but that's an interesting angle for me is what happens with Binnington in St. Louis, because he's a goalie that I would kick tires on. At least I would look into it. He's under contract long-term, but he is a good player, and he could be a guy. And also for St. Louis, if they do fall tonight, Tarasenko has wanted out for a while. He played this year, played extremely well, has been underwhelming in the playoffs, but do they look to move him? That's something, I think they can get a haul back for him as well. So St. Louis could be an interesting team because they go through the regular season. They're just another team. They battled with Minnesota the whole year, but they're always in the mix. They always seem to make the playoffs. They still have that nucleus of players. O'Reilly and Perron, two veterans, have played fantastic in this postseason. So we'll see if they do make any moves. But that's something that I could see moving forward. But yeah, only 3 series left in the second round. It's weird because you're like, well, you only got 1 hockey game tonight. It sucks. I mean, I'll be able to flip between Boston and Miami, the NBA game, and this one, throw that one on my computer. But that's why the first round of the NHL playoffs is so great, because you have so many different series. You have so many different players, so much stuff to track, a lot of interesting storylines. And with 2 series being 3-1, this series could be over tonight. The Edmonton series could be over tomorrow. And then you're just waiting for the Rangers-Canes to get decided at some point over the weekend. So we're getting into it here. The NBA is winding down. Their finals starts a week tomorrow. The conference finals, I believe, at the latest will start either Sunday or Monday for the NHL. So we're really getting down to it here, because before we know it, we're gonna have the NHL draft, because I believe that's on July 7th. So Montreal will be on the clock, and you're seeing. Obviously Shane Wright is being talked about. Jurek Slavkovsky, who's playing for Slovakia. I like this kid more and more. I've been watching the Worlds. I might be the only person on planet Earth watching the World Hockey Championships. But this kid, I think Montreal should probably take Shane Wright for a number of reasons. But I think Slavkovsky has the higher ceiling. I think he is a guy that has more potential. He could be a better player in, say, 15 years, but Shane Wright is the product right now that's just better. In this past NFL draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars decided not to take Aiden Hutchinson, who was the known product. He was the player that was, what you're going to get from him in the league. In my opinion, he's a great pass rusher, was great at Michigan. They decided to kind of reach and go for the player that maybe has a better ceiling, but you don't know if he's going to get there. So I think Shane Wright is the safe pick. Montreal's has taken enough players reaching. They did it with Kotkaniemi. They do it all the time with players when it comes to, well, this player is clearly the better pick, but you'll reach. You'll look for something that isn't there. They reached for Jonathan Drouin when they had Mikhail Sergachev on their team. And look how that's turned out for them. Now they pay anybody to take Jonathan Drouin off their hands. They can't do it because the guy has got a mental issue, or then he's got he's got problems, so he's never available. So I think Montreal takes Shane Wright, and I probably would too. It's the safe pick. He's a center. It's hard to go against that thought process. But I also like the idea of Slavkovsky because I think he's got a great shot. He's got a great finish around the net. And I think he can get better and better as his years go on. And, this draft is – I'm going to start doing a bigger deep dive into it. I have watched a lot of these players. I watch a lot of international hockey. Slavkovsky, I saw him at the Olympics. I've seen him here. I saw him at the World Juniors when I was there in Edmonton in December briefly before it was shut down. So he's been around all year. He's played good hockey. Again, I saw Shane Wright at the World Juniors. He wasn't great to me. He was just okay. He didn't really put a big flare on. I didn't see Bergeron there. I have seen his game where you look at the two-way play. I think he's going to be a really good face-off guy in the league. But what would concern me if I'm a team is you get less Patrice Bergeron and you get more John Tavares. And maybe if you can get Tavares at his peak for longer, then yeah, you got a great player, worthy of a number 1 overall pick. But after their careers have gone on and you look at that draft, Tavares went 1, Hedman went 2. There's no person on earth, maybe Tavares' dad, but no other person is taking Tavares 1 over Hedman looking back at that draft. We could see the same type thing where Shane Wright is better from jump. He has his positive things about him. He's good on faceoffs. He's good defensively. And he's a better skater than Tavares for sure, but he's not that big. He's got some detractors about him. His team in Kingston just got beat out in the OHL playoffs by the North Bay Battalion. So he's sitting there waiting for the draft because, the CHL playoffs are ongoing with the Memorial Cup going because I love to track that as well. We got the Q is starting their conference finals tonight. This is just a prediction. I think in the Memorial Cup, obviously St. John's going to be there. They're the host team. They just fired their coach the other day, by the way, if you didn't see that, which was a crazy turn of events. I'm less than a month out to the Memorial Cup. They fired their coach. Never seen that before. So they're going to be there. I believe in the QMJHL. Charlottetown's a really good team. Quebec is playing Shawinigan. I think that's going to be I think if Quebec beats Shawinigan, because I think Shawinigan is going to be a very tight, tough matchup. I'm going to say Quebec is going to get there for the QMJHL teams. Charlottetown is good, but I think Quebec's a little better. I think Quebec and Shawinigan could potentially go 5, but I think, and then it's a best of 7 in the final series, best of 5 in this series upcoming. But I think Quebec will get by them. I think they'll go to the Memorial Cup. Out west, I like the Edmonton Oil Kings. They're playing the Winnipeg Ice right now. They're up 2-1 in that series. That one is going to go 6 or 7. They're the 2 best teams, but they're in the same conference, so they're playing one another. You got Kamloops and Seattle on the other side. I think the winner of that series will beat Kamloops in the final, but I think it'll be the Edmonton Oil Kings. They're loaded with NHL prospects: Dylan Guenther, Jake Neighbors, Caden Gooley. They just got a really, really good roster in Edmonton, and I believe they'll get there. So you're going to see a heavy dose of NHL talent and some first-round picks from the Oil Kings. And then finally from the Ontario Hockey League, I think you're going to see the Hamilton Bulldogs get there. They're up 2-0 currently in their conference final over North Bay. But they got Nathan Staios in the back end, who's the son of Steve Staios. They got Mason McTavish, who's been playing everywhere this year. He is he's been phenomenal so far these playoffs, and kudos to him. And Logan Morrison's been great, Avery Hayes, but I just think Hamilton is loaded, and I think going into the Mem Cup they'll be the betting favorite. But we'll track that as we get there. But just want to do a little presser on the CHL playoffs because they are ongoing. I've been tracking it, and those guys are fighting for it to get the opportunity to play the Memorial Cup beginning June 20th in St. John, New Brunswick. If you got any NHL questions you want to throw at me today, feel free to leave them in the comments. I always love to hear from the listeners, and anything you want to chime in, any trade scenarios, any games you like, any betting lines, feel free to let me know. NBA. NBA last night. I picked the Mavericks. They did get the win. I thought they would. I thought they were too good of a team to get swept by the Golden State Warriors. And, really the difference last night, and you could argue the difference in most NBA games, is do you hit your threes? Well, the Mavericks in the last two games were shooting 24% from three-point range. The first half last night, if you can believe this, they shot 11 for 23 from three, which is 48%. You're going to win a lot of games when you're shooting 48% from three. You look, Dorian Finney-Smith went 2 for 2. Davis Bertans went 1 for 2. Bullock went 3 for 6. Brunson 1 for 2. Kleba 2 for 3. It didn't matter that Luka Doncic did not shoot the ball well in the first half, going 1 for 5. It was that they hit their threes, they hit their open looks, and they just weren't getting that before. Doncic can only do so much. He's a great player. He's one of the best players in the world, period. But when your teammates aren't helping you, it's extremely difficult to win. Michael Jordan didn't do it on his own. LeBron James didn't do it on his own. You need other guys to step up. That's what makes their opponent, the Golden State Warriors, so intriguing and so fascinating, because they are the antithesis of a team. Steph Curry is a huge name. He's the greatest shooter of all time. He is one of the greatest players to ever play. But he might be the most unselfish, point guard player, one of the most unselfish players in the history of the game, because he is willing to make the extra pass. He's willing for Draymond Green to have a big game, for Klay Thompson to have a big game, for Kevin Durant to come into a team a few years ago and become the best player, and it didn't bother him. He just wants to win. A former number 1 overall pick, Andrew Wiggins, has fit in like a glove. That's just the way they built a culture. And the Mavericks win last night. That's a story. It's a small one because they win one game. I thought the Warriors, they relied too heavy on the three-pointer. Klay Thompson, unfortunately for him, injuries have really robbed him of athleticism, robbed him of his legs, I believe, because his threes are really short in these playoffs. And for him, he's going to get a good game followed by a bad one. That's pretty much what he can give you now. He just doesn't have it like he used to, but that can't be. He tore his Achilles, then tore his ACL in a 2-year period where he missed 2 full seasons. He's been through a lot. The fact that he's still playing adequately on a team that might win an NBA title is a great thing in and of itself. But last night, Curry didn't shoot well. Thompson was shooting terrible. Andrew Wiggins had his worst game of the series defensively and offensively. And ultimately, the Warriors had to rely on Jonathan Kuminga to be their offense. And Kuminga is really, really talented, ton of athleticism. I think he's going to be a good player in the NBA. But he can't shoot yet. He still needs to figure out his stroke. He had way too many shots in the second quarter. And that's why by the end of the second quarter, the Dallas Mavericks had a 15-point lead, because Kuminga was taking every shot. He had the ball in his hands. And as a Dallas Maverick, you're like, okay, I want Jonathan Kuminga to have the ball. I'd rather have him have it than pretty much anybody else on their roster. No offense to Kuminga. But, I think it's small potatoes that Dallas wins one game, because nobody in the history of the NBA has come back from 0-3 down. Now, that can change. I don't think the Dallas Mavericks are going to be the team to end this curse. But you do win one game. Golden State doesn't always seal people out. They have games where they stink. That wasn't a stinker last night. It was close, but Dallas gets the win. The pressure point hits is if Golden State loses tomorrow night. That's when you can start to panic if you're Golden State. If you're a Golden State fan, you can say, okay, we might be in trouble here. We're giving this series away to an inferior team. That's when you can start to panic. But I wouldn't yet, because you have a veteran team that's been to so many finals, that's been there, done that still has I'm not going to use that word because I don't, again, momentum is a stupid word in my opinion because I think it's irrelevant game to game. But you have the better team, top to bottom. You have more. Doncic might be better than any individual player on the Golden State Warriors. But if you're doing a player draft after Doncic, when does the next Dallas Maverick player come? When is Jalen Brunson drafted? He's not going above Steph. He's not going. I don't think he's going above. He's not going above Jordan Poole. He might not go above Draymond the way Draymond's played in these playoffs. So it shouldn't be panic in Golden State yet. Good for the Mavericks for avoiding a sweep, battling it out. But they can keep winning. They can keep this series competitive if their guys hit threes, because that's the way they play. They don't go in the paint. They don't really play pick and roll. It's that you find guys and they either hit their threes or they don't. Does Bullock hit threes? Does Finney-Smith hit threes? Does Kleba, who I thought played really well last night, and even Bertans, who normally is kind of a liability, I thought he played extremely well last night. He grabbed rebounds. He had great hustle. He hit threes. He hit buckets in the lane. He just came out and looked, determined. I think you kind of hear the noise about how you're playing like crap and you don't want to hear about it, and it hurts your ego a little bit. So I think he took that personally and he wanted to come out and have a good effort, and he did last night. So we'll see what the Mavericks can bring tomorrow night in Game 5 back in the Bay Area. Tonight, you got Boston, Miami. Game 5 in South Beach. I had the Boston Celtics winning this series in 6 games. I've been saying since after the first round that I thought the Boston Celtics were winning the NBA title. I'm not backing off that. I believe that Boston will beat Golden State in the final now. Originally it would be Phoenix, but they threw up all over themselves and Dallas got by them. But Boston is a better team than Miami. Miami might play, has tough defensive players in Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo can block. But Boston just has more consistently good players in Tatum and Brown, Horford even. And I just think Miami's banged up. They just don't have it right now. Jimmy Butler hasn't played good the last 2 games. I don't know if we'll see that again tonight. But I think the Celtics are going to win in Miami tonight, Game 5 on the road, and finish this out at TD Garden on Friday night. The Celtics need a breather before their next round. They've been playing a lot of basketball. I believe it's a set schedule, so the NBA Finals will start a week from Thursday, regardless. Even if the series end Thursday and Friday, it'll start next Thursday because that's when the ABC schedule is. The Thursday night, I believe, June 2nd. So they would get some time off. They get to breathe. A lot of guys are banged up. Marcus Smart didn't play in Game 4. No word if he's playing tonight yet. No word if Tyler Hero is going to dress yet for the Miami Heat, as he didn't dress in Game 4. You could argue a lot of the Heat starters didn't dress in Game 4. They only had 18 combined points. So it's been a struggle for the Heat lately. But Jason Tatum, please stand up. This is your night. You've been really good in these playoffs, and there's been nights where you've been horrible. Game 3, he was god-awful. Game 4, he's just okay. He shot 1 of 7 from 3. I don't think people remember that. I mean, you look at his stat line, Boston won by 1,000,000 points. You kind of push that under the rug of just how porous he played. But for him tonight, this is the biggest moment of his career. He's been to one conference final. He played in a Game 7, 2018 against the Cavs. He played well in that game, but LeBron was a little better, and the Cavs got to a finals and then got swept about a week later. But you're in a position now where you are the best player in this series. You can make the argument, because I think Dallas is going to be beat out, you're the best player remaining in these playoffs. Steph Curry is the best player when it comes to all-time, resume with these teams. But Tatum, I think, is a better player right now than Curry is at his advanced age. So you're the best player remaining in these playoffs. You're playing an inferior team. Yes, you have a road game, but you won in Miami in Game 2. Win it tonight. It's tough to win a game 7 on the road. Milwaukee couldn't do it, and Milwaukee had the best player in the postseason in Giannis Antetokounmpo. Your team was able to stop them. But even the inferior team in Miami might be able to beat you in a game 7 at home just because of that home crowd. Just because that's the NBA is a weird thing, man. Because those home road splits are real in the NBA. Less than they used to be, but still, you get a game 7 at home, you're likely going to win it. You're likely, unless you're the Phoenix Suns and you just come out and lay an absolute egg, you're likely going to win that game. So I think Boston wins tonight. I think Tatum goes off. I think he scores 30 to 35, maybe more. I think over 32 and a half. So that's the set number tonight. He's going over that tonight. I like the Boston Celtics tonight to win that game because they're just the better team. Yes, Smart is wounded, but so are the Heat players. The Heat might have to play Udonis Haslem tonight because they're so beat up. And I'm looking forward to this game because this could be the series to me because I'm not saying Miami wins game 6 on the road, but even if the Celtics lose tonight and they win game 6 and then find a way to win game 7, playing those extra couple games, that extra game could mean more wear and tear. Could mean that you could be tired when you play Golden State in the finals and you're not ready. And that could be the difference. Having that extra rest is pivotal at this point because this hasn't been like the regular NBA playoffs of past years where you get 4 days off between games. I'm being facetious, but they do get 2-3 days off normally when they're traveling. So because of the shrunken schedule and COVID and everything, they don't get that luxury this year. So oddly enough, I'm here on FanDuel Sportsbook. The Boston Celtics are a 2.5-point favorite tonight on the road, which is interesting. I find that, I think Boston, clearly the books think the Boston Celtics are the better team, as do I. I hate that they're the favorite. I do hate that they're the favorite. To score 30-plus points tonight, Jason Tatum is a plus 122. I'm taking it. I take that tonight. I take the Celtics minus 2.5. They're the favorite, but I like them, the road favorites, which, again, that's a scary thought as a bettor. With the home team being 2.5-point underdogs, I understand why if people are betting on the Heat here as we head into game time, but I'm betting the Celtics. I'm betting Tatum to score over 30 points tonight because I think he's going to get 30 to 40 because it's a big game and he needs to have it. He scored in that must-win game 6. He scored 40 against the Milwaukee Bucks. And again, it's not a must-win tonight, but I think it's really, really important. It's really, really because a game 7 on the road is not a fun proposition. And also you get a situation where you have to play another game. Maybe you don't win the title because you're so drained and fatigued. So again, that's my pick of the night. I like the Celtics minus 2.5, and I like Jason Tatum at plus 122 to score over 30 points. I'm not going to bet the hockey game tonight because that's a little boring to me. I think Colorado's going to win the game. They look on FanDuel here quickly, but I know they'll be the favorite, probably minus 1.5. The hockey lines are pretty basic, if you will, at least in my opinion. But see the NHL here. Yeah. So you got Colorado as a favorite tonight, of course. So Colorado's a minus 1.5 favorite. That seems to be every hockey game. So that's just the line there. But I like the Avs to win tonight, so I'll not be putting any action on that. Just spice it up. We got the NBA tonight. I hit on the Mavs last night. We'll see what happens tonight with the Celtics on the road. French Open. Don't know if you guys watch a lot of tennis. I go through spurts where I watch a lot of tennis, and then there's times where I just don't have time for it. I get to watch golf. I get to different things. But when it gets to major time, I'm dialed in on the majors. I got to watch them. I find them fascinating. And we're currently in the middle of the second round of the French Open, where we've seen a lot, and I repeat, a lot of just anarchy and craziness today and so far in this tournament. So far out of this tournament is Maria Sakkari, number 4 in the world, Barbara Krejcikova, number 2 in the world and defending champion here at the French Open, Annette Kontaveit, number 5 in the world, Ons Jabber, number 6 in the world, Danielle Collins, number 10 in the world, Gabby Muguruza, number 9 in the world, and Emma Raducanu, winner of the U.S. Open last year over Leylah Annie Fernandez, number 12 in the world, all eliminated. 2 rounds in, the draw is wide open, and that seems to happen every major for these women. And that's what makes it great. There's still the big favorite on the women's draw, and that would be Iga Swiatek. She's won 29 straight matches, winning 3 Masters 1000s events in a row, which is a crazy feat for her. Since Ash Barty retired, she has not lost a match. She lost to Ash at the Australian Open, but she's been the number 1 player in the world. She's dominated since. But now looking at the women's draw, there's Swiatek, the heavy favorite. You have Angelique Kerber, who won a clay court event coming into the French. She's won at Wimbledon. She's won at the Aussie Open. She's never won here at Roland Garros. You have Victoria Azarenka, who is from Belarus. Interesting summer for her because she's Belarusian, she will not be able to compete at Wimbledon. So this is her, and the U.S. Open still undecided if she'll be able to play. So this might be her last major of 2022. So take advantage of it while you can. It was a battle today, but she got through it. She is a major champion, never won at Roland Garros. Belinda Bencic has been to 2 Grand Slam semifinals, but has never reached a final, has never won. She beat Bianca Andreescu, the Canadian, earlier today. She's been there. She's won an Olympic gold medal. So she's a woman that could definitely break out. You have Leylah Annie Fernandez, who won today, the young Canadian woman who reached the U.S. Open final last year. She gets by today. She gets a win. It was a 3-set first round, straight sets today. So she looks good in that. She's had a tough go of it. Her and Raducanu, they're both so young. They played in the final last year. Leylah's actually had a better run than Raducanu. Raducanu's lost, I believe, 10 of her last 12 matches overall, and she's really lacked confidence since winning that major. So for Leylah just to get to a third round, I think it's a big accomplishment. She's been through a lot personally, and she's signing deals with different companies, and good for her. She's got Belinda Bencic in the third round. That's a tough matchup. Bencic just beat Andreescu. She looks to be the Canadian killer. But that's already, a match that I think should be highlighted here as one of the best in the third round, because those two are definitely women that could win this whole thing. And then lastly, for the women that you can really look at is Coco Gauff, who is a young American woman. She's had great success earlier in her career. Has made it to multiple Grand Slam quarterfinals. She's made it to a round of 16s. She's had good runs at majors, and I think she reached the quarterfinals here last year. So she's looking to build off what she did last time. Her serve can be inconsistent, but she's definitely somebody that could go on a run, that could go all the way. Also on the other draw, you got Paula Badoza, who's number 3 in the world. She's still in it. She's a threat. Pliskova won a clay court event coming into this as well. She's number 8 in the world. And also I look at 2 former champions here. Simona Halep, who hasn't played a whole lot of tennis. She's been injured, inconsistent as well. But she's won here before. And Yelena Ostapenko won here as a 16-year-old. This is where she plays her best tennis. So could she get hot again and win another French Open title? I wouldn't rule it out. So that's what's happening on the women's side of the draw. On the men's side, there's really the group of death, and those were the players playing today. And the other half of the draw is really kind of an easier side. Whoever reaches the final won't have to go through murderer's row, if you will, and I'll explain. The men's side of the draw, on one half of the draw, you have Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic. You got Alexander Sasha Zverev, the number 2 player in the world. You got Cameron Norton. You got Felix Auger-Aliassime, the Canadian who won today. And then you have Carlos Alcaraz, who's been really the breakout star of the year. He's won 4 times on the ATP Tour this year. He's beaten Nadal. He's beaten Djokovic on clay coming into this event. And he was nearly upset today. He beats Albert Ramos Vinolas, another Spaniard. A 5-set match. He was down 2-1. He goes into a tiebreak in the 4th set, but he ends up battling it out. This is what this guy does. He's getting better and better. He's only 19 years old, but he's a threat. So you have Djokovic, you got Nadal and Alcaraz, who I think are the 3 great players here on one half, and you also got Zverev, who is the number 2 player in the world as well. So this side of the draw is loaded. I mean, Zverev was 2 sets down today. Like Alcaraz, they both come back to win. Rafael Nadal is winning straight sets. Looks like it's going to be a comfortable win. Djokovic, 2 matches, 2 straights, 2 easy wins for him. So they're smooth sailing. On the other half of the draw, it's going to be who gets to the final. That's really the interesting point here. You got Casper Ruud, he's number 8 in the world now. He's had a surge. Good. You have Medvedev, who's never reached actually a quarterfinal on clay. Big opportunity for him. You got Hubert Hurkacz, who had a good run at Wimbledon last year. You got Andrei Rublev, who is another great player. Tsitsipas, Sinner potentially, but all these guys, Tsitsipas got to a major final and lost to Djokovic last year at Roland Garros. It was at Roland Garros. He was up 2-0, and Djokovic came back. So it's going to be a big opportunity for whoever can reach the final on the other side, because these other players, I think, are going to have to go through a lot to get there. Say Djokovic and Nadal meet up in the semifinal. That's going to be a lot of wear and tear on their bodies. It took over 4 hours last year for Djokovic to beat Nadal. Ultimately, he had enough in the tank to beat Tsitsipas, but who knows how that goes this year. Alcaraz is still a wild card. He had to play a long match today, but if he can get a quick win on Friday in the 3rd round, then he can get some rest before a big quarterfinal, where I believe he would meet Rafael Nadal if everything goes according to plan. So we should get some great tennis. Again, Nadal he's the last man on right now for the day in Paris. He looks to have a pretty easy win on Philippe Chatrier court, but we're going to continue to track it. Lots of interesting stuff. Again, you got Leila Annie Fernandez still in the field. You have Felix Auger-Aliassime. Both Canadians are into the 3rd round. They'll both play on Friday. So that I look quick who Felix is set to play on Friday to see if he'll be he's going to play Filip Krajinovic, which honestly is a good he had an upset today. So Felix will be a heavy favorite going into that match. So again, that doesn't mean he's going to win it. But you got Nori Khachanov, which will be a fun match. Dimitrov Schwartzman. You got Zverev, you got Korda playing Alcaraz. John Isner should win. Djokovic. So a lot of good matches upcoming at the French Open, and we'll track it all here on To The Point. Some news, they both came out around the same time here just a few minutes ago. Washington Capitals forward Tom Wilson will be out 6 to 8 months after recovering from a torn ACL. That's why he did not play in the playoffs. He's having surgery. He'll have to rehab that, so he won't be ready for the start of the season. So tough news there for Tom Wilson, but he'll have to battle back for the Capitals, and they'll need him next season for sure. And then the more interesting news to me, and this came out of nowhere, but the Las Vegas Raiders are currently working out Colin Kaepernick. So Las Vegas Raiders are working out. He's there for a workout. He's on the field. It's OTAs this week, which is basically like before training camp workouts. It's a voluntary thing. Some quarterbacks don't show up, so it's a lot of backups getting reps at these events. Tom Brady is not there, for instance. Aaron Rodgers is not present in Green Bay. Kyler Murray is not there for Arizona, Baker Mayfield. But the Las Vegas Raiders are hosting Colin Kaepernick. And, if this was John Gruden's Raiders, I wouldn't be that surprised because I think I remember him back in the day talking about how much he liked Colin Kaepernick when he worked for ESPN, worked at the mothership, and all the stuff he could do in the field. The Las Vegas Raiders obviously had to fire John Gruden last year. They fired Mike Mayock, their GM. Now they have Josh McDaniels, the former OC of the New England Patriots, and they got a GM that used to work for the Patriots as well. So this is an interesting fact because currently the Raiders have Derek Carr obviously slated as their starter. They signed him to an extension. They got Nick Mullins slated as their number 2 quarterback, who's the number 3 in Cleveland last year. Jarrett Stidham is the number 3 quarterback. He just got traded there from New England after he was just a bust coming out of Auburn. And then they have Chase Garbers, who's an undrafted free agent. So Colin Kaepernick is better than Nick Mullins. He's better than Jarrett Stidham. I think it would be a great story if he got signed by a team. If it's Vegas, great. I don't really care which team it is. I think he should get signed by a team. He hasn't played in a very long time, but I think he wants to play. I think if he's fit, I think if he can throw the ball, he's absolutely good enough to be a backup quarterback. He has been for some time. There will be people that don't like that he got another chance. I really could care less about those people. But this is an interesting story to me. The fact that I think this would be really great. I hope he gets signed. I mean, I've been on that bandwagon forever. I will always support him. But if the Raiders are serious about this, sign Cap because I think it's a smart move. I think it helps your team. And if it does happen, that's a lot of perseverance. He had to wait a long time for this opportunity. And it would be worth it if he gets a contract after all of this. So interesting to see how this plays out between Cap and the Las Vegas Raiders. I was going to talk baseball to end the show today, but that can wait. I want to talk about what happened yesterday in Texas with, obviously, you know what I'm talking about, the school shooting. I'm not the Mr. Politics. I follow politics. I find them interesting. I have my point of views, whatever. I think you can be liberal, you can be Democratic, you can be Republican, you can vote green here, whether it's Canada, US, whatever. But I think there's something that we can all agree on. And that's that no 5-year-old child should be killed in a school. I think as a world, as a nation, with all the divisiveness, with all the cancel culture, with everything, all the negativity in our world, I think that's something we can agree on. That you shouldn't send your children to school and think, am I going to see that person today? I asked my mother this morning, did you ever worry about me not coming home from school? And she said, well, of course not, Noah. And maybe it's because of where we live here in New Brunswick. We didn't grow up in New York City. We didn't grow up in Texas, where their mayor a few years ago on Twitter was talking about how his state, he was encouraging people to buy more guns because they were second behind Montana or something in sales of guns. But if you're a parent now, if you're a good one anyway, I think it would just be you'd be afraid to send your kids to school. Because these school shootings are not an anomaly anymore. They're not, it happened. I remember Columbine. And it was, it's so sad. And, I feel so bad for the people there. It never happens, right? How many times now are we saying that Sandy Hook Elementary and all these different events that happen, this isn't just something that this happens all the time. People should not just be able to buy an AR-15. If you need to feel secure to have a gun, why is it an AR-15? No person, unless you're in the military defending your country, should have the authorization to carry an AR-15 gun. It's reckless. It makes no sense. Republicans, and I voted Republican, so then there you go. But Republicans, conservatives are never going to say, no, we can't have a gun. That should never happen. We need to have weapons wherever. We need the right to bear arms. But there needs to be regulations. Politicians, judges, people that have authority in the United States and countries around the world need to do more. They need to address this. Saying, I feel bad for the families, thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers are the two worst words that you could use because they're just throwaway words. They don't have any action. They don't move anything forward. What I'm saying now might fall on deaf ears because I'm just on a podcast, but I felt I had to express this. I can't make that change. I'm not a politician, but if enough of us are saying that it's a good idea, if enough of us are saying this shouldn't be, oh, do it, you'll get our vote type deal. But if that's the way that change has to come, then I'm all about it. Because no more kids, no more innocent people should have to die for a politician to make a smart, rational decision. But unfortunately, that's what it seems to be. Guns should not be promoted. They don't promote cigarettes on television anymore. Do you realize that? There's no ads for cigarettes. Why are politicians on Twitter, a platform, being talked about, you need to go purchase more weapons? We are falling behind in the sales of weapons. So what are we going to tell our children next? That they should go stack up on crack? Why is an 18-year-old able to buy a weapon? Background checks. There has to be a better system put in place. I said this the other day when it came to social media with the Nazem Kadri situation. If you're caught on social media talking about weapons, you're in a chat room, you are threatening somebody's life, whether it's racist or not, you need to be flagged. You cannot buy a weapon because you are a danger to yourself and to the public at large. I am just a 23-year-old guy that could figure this out. The fact that people with way more knowledge of this, way more options, and just with the possibility of change aren't, is a sad state of affairs. Today's a sad day. And thoughts and prayers are what normally people say. And I'd say that too. I feel so bad for these families and it's terrible, but we forget it. We throw it away. We forget about this tragedy because life goes on. But I saw this today. In the UK 26 years ago, there was a school shooting and I believe 21 people died. Since then, there have been 0 school shootings. You know why? Because they don't sell weapons. That's not that radical of an idea to me, but it might be in the United States, but the way that people have got their ability to get weapons and the way they've used them, if they can't find a solution that has background checks, that has real change to stop this from happening, then people should not be allowed to bear arms, period, because you've lost that privilege. The safety of the many is better than the small cock syndrome of Republicans around the world that need to have a weapon, to say that they got one because they're a big man. Thoughts and prayers are not what I'm feeling today. I feel more anger. I feel that this can be solved, but we're doing nothing to do it. Posting on social media that you're sad, good for you. Those people can do that and they can feel better about themselves for a day when they get somebody who says, oh, you're so woke. Making real change is getting behind a cause and doing something about it. If there's a petition online to get rid of arms, I will sign it. I will invoke it. Let's do it. Why do people need to carry weapons, period? If not, background check something. There needs to be a solution better than what's happening right now, because every other week, innocent people are dying for no reason. Little babies, little 5-year-old kids are getting killed. You shouldn't send your kids to school and worry if they're coming home alive. And parents are right now. Thank you for tuning in today. I didn't want to start the show this way because it's negative. It's a tough topic, but I had to talk about it for a little bit today because it's serious and this can't keep happening. Celtics, to pivot back, -2.5 tonight. Tatum, over 30 points. Picks of the day. Hope you enjoyed the show. Let's make some change, world. I'm Noah Warren, and this is To The Point.